Elena always believed she knew her life and her husband, Michael, completely, but lately, she had begun to sense a quiet distance growing between them, subtle and almost invisible at first, like the gentle shift of seasons that goes unnoticed until one day you realize the leaves have changed completely. Their marriage had been built on comfort, routine, and an unspoken understanding of each other, the kind of relationship where they could spend entire evenings in silence and still feel connected, yet the longer she noticed Michael's distracted glances, the more she felt a small ache inside her chest, a worry she tried to ignore while going through the familiar rhythm of their days, making breakfast, sharing a smile over morning coffee, walking together to the nearby park, or simply sitting on the porch while the world moved quietly around them. But this new unease wasn't just the result of ordinary life. Something in Michael's demeanor had shifted, a subtle restlessness, a faraway look in his eyes that made Elena pause in her thoughts and wonder if he had begun carrying a secret she had yet to uncover. She tried casual questions, soft nudges to open conversations, how was your day, or are you thinking about something, but each time he would shake his head gently, offering only a polite smile, saying, it's nothing, love, and leaving her unsatisfied, the words feeling like a curtain drawn over a window she longed to see through. One rainy afternoon, as she carefully arranged a bouquet of fresh flowers in a vase, taking pleasure in the soft colors and the way the petals seemed to brighten the dim room, she noticed Michael staring at an old photograph sitting on the mantel. A photo from their wedding day, their smiles bright, the world appearing full of possibility, a frozen memory of a time that now felt simultaneously close and impossibly distant. He ran a finger lightly along the edge of the frame, almost absent-mindedly, and for the first time in weeks, he spoke in a tone so quiet it barely rose above the sound of the rain tapping against the windows. Do you ever wonder what life would have been like if we had done something different? Elena froze in place, her hands hovering over the flowers, startled not just by the question but by the depth of emotion in his voice, a fragile mixture of longing, regret, and curiosity, and she realized that this was no casual remark, no passing thought, but a hint of a hidden desire he had carried silently for years. Her mind raced with possibilities, imagining what he could mean by different, and she felt a surge of fear mingled with curiosity because if his different involved something she could not give him, it could change everything they had built together. That night, the rain continued its steady rhythm, casting shadows on the walls, and Elena lay awake in the dim glow of their bedroom lamp, thoughts spinning faster than she could contain, memories of their wedding day, early years filled with laughter, small arguments, and the gentle moments of shared silence, all colliding with the new image of Michael as someone harboring a wish he had never spoken, a secret longing she had not noticed, a part of him that had remained hidden even from her. And the ache in her chest deepened with each passing minute. She thought about the photograph again, the frozen smiles on their faces, the way life had slowly filled the space between them with routines and responsibilities, and she realized she had been living alongside Michael rather than fully understanding him in recent years, noticing his actions but not his inner world, and the thought both frightened and excited her because she longed to reach that hidden part of him, to connect in a way they had not done in a long time. Morning came slowly, the sunlight filtering through heavy clouds, and Elena watched Michael from across the room, the cup of coffee in his hands trembling slightly, the distant look in his eyes like he were standing on the edge of a decision, ready to leap but unsure where he would land. She approached him carefully, her steps silent on the wooden floor, and sat beside him on the porch, not rushing, just waiting, giving him the space to speak, to let his heart open in his own time, sensing that this moment was delicate, fragile, and charged with the potential to change the course of their lives. Michael, she began softly, her voice steady but tender, you've been quiet lately. I feel like there's something on your mind. Can you tell me? The question lingered in the air like a gentle invitation, a door opening just enough for him to step through if he chose, and for a long moment he did not speak, staring into the foggy distance, his thoughts clearly wrestling with themselves, the weight of years pressing down as if decades of unspoken feelings were waiting to be released. Finally, he sighed, a deep, almost mournful sound, and turned to her with eyes that were vulnerable, revealing a side she had rarely seen, the man behind the husband, the dreamer behind the partner, a person who had carried his desires silently to protect her, to protect them, from disappointment or fear. There's something I've wanted for a long time, he admitted, his voice trembling slightly, something I never shared, not even with you. I thought it was silly, maybe selfish, and I didn't want to burden you. But now, I can't keep it inside anymore. Elena's pulse quickened, her heart swelling with anticipation, hope, and a delicate fear, and she reached for his hand, her fingers brushing against his, feeling the warmth and slight tremor, the human touch that conveyed more than words ever could. What is it? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper, her whole being leaning in to catch his words, to grasp the truth he had held back for years, sensing that whatever he was about to say could change the rhythm of their days, the texture of their love, and perhaps the very direction of their lives together. Michael swallowed hard, took a deep breath, and finally spoke, his eyes never leaving hers. I've always dreamed that we could travel, just the two of us. To leave everything familiar behind, to see the world together, to chase sunsets in places we've never been, to experience life in a way that we haven't yet. I thought we'd have time, that we'd do it someday, but life happened, and I never told you. Elena felt tears sting her eyes, her throat tightening as she understood the weight of his confession, the depth of longing he had hidden, the beauty of a wish so simple yet so powerful, a desire not for riches, not for fame, but for shared experiences, intimacy, and the chance to feel alive together again, and in that moment, she realized that the distance she had felt between them was not a failure of love but a quiet, unspoken yearning, a gap that could now be bridged. Why didn't you ever tell me? She asked softly, her voice trembling, a mixture of sadness and hope. I didn't want to disappoint you, he said quietly, or make you feel burdened. I thought it was too late, that maybe it was silly to dream this now. But looking at that old photo today, seeing us back then, I realized that life is too short to keep wishes hidden, too short to not chase the things that make our hearts feel alive. Elena's heart swelled with emotion, and a gentle resolve took hold of her. She squeezed his hand, feeling the connection between them spark like electricity, and whispered, "It's never too late. We can still do it. Together." But even as she spoke these words, a flutter of uncertainty ran through her. Could they really leave behind the comfort and routine of the life they knew? Could they risk the familiar to embrace the unknown? Her heart ached with anticipation, the same ache she felt when she first fell in love with Michael years ago, a mix of fear and excitement, longing and hope, and as she watched him smile faintly, a small, almost shy smile filled with gratitude and love, she understood that their journey, both in life and in love, was about to begin, and nothing would ever be quite the same again, because sometimes, the simplest of wishes, long held in silence, can awaken a life that has been waiting patiently for years, a life full of possibilities, adventure, and a love renewed in ways that neither of them could have imagined, and in that moment, as rain continued to fall softly outside, the world seemed both infinite and intimate, a space where secrets could be shared, dreams could be pursued, and hearts could rediscover the joy of being truly, deeply, and fearlessly alive together. The morning after Michael had confessed his long-held desire to travel and see the world with Elena, she woke up with a mix of excitement and determination swirling in her chest, a warmth that made her feel alive in a way she hadn't experienced for years, and when she stepped into the kitchen to make coffee, she found Michael already there, staring out the window as sunlight struggled to break through the light morning haze, and she realized in that quiet moment that both of them were carrying unspoken emotions that could either lift them higher than ever before or shake the very foundation of their lives. She moved closer, her steps soft on the wooden floor, and without rushing, she placed her hand gently on his arm, feeling the warmth and slight tremble beneath her fingers, and said, "Michael, I want to know everything. Tell me more about this dream you've had, this wish you've carried alone for so long." And for a moment, he hesitated, swallowing hard as if choosing his words carefully, aware that speaking them out loud would make them real, irreversible. Yet the intensity of her gaze and the love reflected there gave him courage, and he began to speak, each word unfolding like a delicate thread weaving them closer together, a tapestry of hope and longing that Elena had only glimpsed through quiet gestures and fleeting looks over the years. And as he spoke, the story of his secret wish became clear. He had always imagined them exploring places untouched by routine, cities alive with colors and sounds they had never experienced, beaches where they could walk for hours without interruption, mountains that invited them to climb together, and markets filled with spices and music and laughter, experiences that would make their hearts beat faster and remind them of the joy of being alive. And Elena listened, captivated, as if hearing not just his wish but a part of himself she had never truly known, a part that longed for adventure and connection, for moments that would become memories they could carry forever. And she felt an ache in her chest because she realized how many years he had carried this alone, keeping it tucked away behind polite smiles and everyday conversation, fearing it might sound frivolous or impossible, and in that realization, her love for him deepened, not just for the man she married, but for the dreamer he had been all along, the man whose heart held such quiet passion for life that it had been waiting for the right time and the right partner to share it with. And she knew in that moment that she wanted to be that partner completely, to embrace his wish as if it were her own, because she felt it awakening something inside her too, a curiosity, a longing, a sense of adventure that had been dormant beneath layers of responsibilities, errands, and the quiet comfort of their familiar life. And she reached out to take his hands in hers, gripping them firmly, gently, and said, "Michael, it's not too late. We can still make this happen. We don't have to wait for someday anymore." And his eyes softened, glistening slightly, a mixture of gratitude and relief, and he nodded, feeling the weight of years lifting from his shoulders, as if sharing the secret aloud had freed him to finally breathe deeply, to imagine the possibilities, to allow himself to hope again. And together they began to imagine their journey in vivid detail, from the narrow cobblestone streets of European towns to the bustling markets of Asia, from quiet beaches where they could watch the sunrise to hidden cafes where they could sit for hours talking and laughing and learning about people and cultures they had never known. And with each idea, each imagined step into the world beyond their small town, their excitement grew, a spark igniting a fire in both of their hearts that neither had expected. And in that spark, Elena realized that this wasn't just about seeing new places, it was about rediscovering each other, peeling away the layers of routine, fatigue, and unspoken fears, and finding the parts of themselves that had been waiting for adventure, for connection, for life to feel vibrant and new again. And she could see the same realization dawn in Michael's eyes, the recognition that the world outside was a canvas and they held the brushes together, ready to paint a life full of memories, laughter, and love. And the thought made her heart pound with anticipation, with joy, with a nervous energy that felt intoxicating because it promised change, transformation, and intimacy deeper than either had felt in years. And as they sat on the porch together that morning, planning and dreaming, Michael suddenly hesitated, biting his lips lightly, and Elena noticed the flicker of hesitation in his expression, and she asked softly, "Is there more? Another part of this dream you've kept from me?" And he nodded, eyes distant for a moment, and she felt the familiar flutter of curiosity mix with excitement, because Michael's secret had layers she hadn't yet uncovered, and she understood that their journey, their adventure, wasn't just going to be through cities and countries but through the depths of their hearts and souls, exploring not just the world but the love, trust, and connection they had cultivated over years and were now ready to awaken fully. And as Michael began to speak again, he revealed the part of his wish that had stayed hidden even from her imagination, that it wasn't only about seeing new places but about creating moments that would make them remember why they had fallen in love, moments that would bring back the thrill of discovery, of being fully alive together, moments that would remind them that life was too short to live quietly when so much wonder waited beyond the walls of their comfort. And Elena felt tears pricking at her eyes, a mix of happiness, tenderness, and longing for the experiences that awaited them, because she realized this was a gift, a chance to renew their love and deepen their bond in ways neither of them had dared to dream. And she squeezed his hands again, her voice trembling slightly with emotion as she whispered, "We'll do it. I want to share every step with you. Let's go together." And Michael's face broke into a smile so genuine and full of relief and love that Elena felt her own heart swell in response, the warmth of shared excitement and unspoken promises filling the space between them as if the world had paused just for them. And for the first time in years, they laughed together, not a forced or polite laugh, but a laugh that came from the depths of their souls, a sound that echoed the joy and anticipation of what was to come, the thrill of stepping into the unknown while holding on to each other. And from that morning onward, they spent days planning, researching destinations, learning a few words in new languages, imagining streets they would walk down, foods they would taste, sunsets they would watch hand in hand, and all the while, Michael's hidden wish, once a secret burden, became the beacon that guided them toward a renewed life. And as they mapped out their journey, Elena realized that the true adventure wasn't only in the places they would see but in the way their hearts were reconnecting, in the way each shared smile, each whispered conversation, each plan made together was stitching them closer than they had been in years, creating a tapestry of hope, trust, and anticipation that would carry them forward. And even in quiet moments, when the excitement paused and they simply held hands or watched the rain fall outside, there was a new energy, a subtle charge of life, a sense that they had tapped into something vital, something that had been missing from their marriage for too long. And in that energy, Elena understood that Michael's wish had always been about more than travel. It had been about courage, about daring to dream, about reminding them both that love required not just comfort and routine but bravery, imagination, and the willingness to step into the unknown together. And she felt honored that he had trusted her with it, that he had shared the deepest corners of his heart, and in that trust, she found her own courage, her own longing to embrace the adventure fully, to let it sweep them away into experiences that would test them, delight them, and ultimately draw them closer, until the ordinary world they had lived in for so long transformed into a life rich with possibility, joy, and the kind of love that flourishes when two people choose each other not just in comfort, but in the pursuit of dreams and shared adventures. And as evening fell, with soft light spilling through the windows and a quiet anticipation lingering in the air, Elena realized that this chapter of their lives was only just beginning, that Michael's hidden wish, once a quiet, private longing, had now become a promise, a shared journey, a chance to rediscover themselves, their love, and the world together. And in that realization, she felt a surge of happiness and hope, a readiness to embrace the unknown with him, because sometimes the most profound dreams, the ones that have been kept secret for years, hold the power to transform everything. And as they sat side by side, imagining the roads they would walk, the sunsets they would chase, and the memories they would create, Elena understood with a full heart that Michael's hidden wish had not only changed their future but had already begun to change them, awakening a joy and intimacy that would carry them through every step of the journey to come. The day they finally left their town behind arrived faster than Elena expected, and as the early morning light spread across the quiet street, she stood beside Michael at the bus stop with a small suitcase at her feet, her heart racing with excitement and fear, because for the first time in years they were stepping away from everything familiar, choosing the unknown over comfort, and that choice made her feel both brave and vulnerable at the same time. And when the bus doors opened and they climbed aboard, she felt the weight of routine lift from her shoulders, replaced by a thrilling sense of possibility that made her grip Michael's hand a little tighter, as if grounding herself in the reality that this was truly happening. The road stretched ahead, long and winding, and as their town disappeared behind them, Michael leaned back in his seat, a quiet smile playing on his lips, his eyes bright with a joy Elena hadn't seen in years. And she realized that this journey had already begun to change him, peeling away layers of worry and restraint that life had slowly built around his heart. They talked endlessly during the ride, about small things and big dreams, about places they had read about and moments they hoped to experience, their words tumbling out freely, as if the road itself had given them permission to speak honestly and openly. And Elena felt closer to him with every mile that passed, their shared excitement weaving them together in a way that felt new and deeply familiar all at once. When they reached the airport, the vast space buzzing with voices and movement, Elena felt a flutter of nervous energy rise in her chest, but Michael's calm presence beside her soothed her fears, and as they navigated crowds and signs in unfamiliar languages, she realized how much she trusted him, how much she loved the way he moved through the world with quiet confidence now that his hidden wish was no longer buried. The flight itself felt surreal, clouds drifting past the window like soft dreams, and as Elena gazed out at the endless sky, she wondered how many people below were living their lives without ever daring to chase a dream, without ever stepping beyond the boundaries of comfort, and the thought made her grateful for this moment, for this chance to rediscover herself and the man she loved. When they finally landed in a city neither of them had ever seen before, the air felt different, alive with new sounds and scents, and as they stepped onto the bustling streets, Elena felt as if she were walking into another life, one where curiosity replaced routine and wonder filled every corner. They wandered without a strict plan, letting instinct guide them, stopping at small cafes tucked away in narrow streets, tasting food they couldn't pronounce, laughing at their mistakes and marveling at the kindness of strangers. And in those moments, Elena saw Michael relax in a way she hadn't realized he needed, his laughter more frequent, his eyes more expressive, his presence lighter, as if each new experience was feeding a part of his soul that had been starved for years. At night, they returned to their modest hotel room, tired but content, sharing stories of the day while sitting close together, their shoulders brushing, the warmth between them comforting and charged with emotion, and Elena felt a deep sense of intimacy in those quiet moments, a closeness that went beyond words, built from shared discovery and the simple joy of being together in an unfamiliar place. One evening, as they walked along a river reflecting the city lights like scattered stars, Michael stopped suddenly, his expression thoughtful, and Elena sensed a shift in the air, a pause filled with unspoken meaning, and when he turned to her, his voice was gentle but serious as he said, "I didn't realize how much I needed this until now," and Elena felt her heart swell, understanding that this journey was not just fulfilling a wish but healing something deep inside him. They sat on a bench by the water, watching boats glide past, and Michael spoke about his fears, about how years of responsibility had slowly made him forget who he was before life became a series of obligations, and Elena listened quietly, her heart aching with tenderness as she realized how often he had put his own desires aside for the sake of stability and duty, and she reached for his hand, offering silent reassurance, letting him know he wasn't alone anymore. The next days unfolded like a vivid dream, filled with museums and markets, hidden alleys and open squares, moments of awe and quiet reflection, and with each experience, Elena felt herself changing too, shedding layers of caution, embracing spontaneity, laughing more freely, speaking more honestly, and she realized that Michael's wish had awakened something inside her as well, a longing to live more fully, to feel deeply, to stop waiting for the perfect moment and instead create it. Yet beneath the joy, a subtle tension began to grow, a feeling Elena couldn't quite name, because as much as this journey brought them closer, it also revealed truths they hadn't fully confronted, and one afternoon, while sitting in a quiet park watching children play and couples stroll by, Michael grew unusually quiet, his gaze fixed on the distance, and Elena sensed that his mind was elsewhere, wrestling with thoughts he hadn't yet shared. She asked gently if he was all right, and he smiled and nodded, but the smile didn't quite reach his eyes, and that small crack in his expression stirred a flicker of unease in her chest, a reminder that even in moments of happiness, life had a way of testing the heart. That night, back in their room, Elena lay awake listening to the sounds of the city drifting through the open window, and she wondered if this journey would only bring them joy or if it would also challenge them in ways they weren't prepared for, because stepping into the unknown meant facing not just beauty and excitement but also truths that could no longer remain hidden. The following morning, they decided to take a train to a nearby town, drawn by the promise of quiet landscapes and open skies, and as the countryside rolled past the window, Elena felt a sense of calm settle over her, the rhythm of travel soothing her thoughts, and when they arrived, the slower pace of life felt like a breath of fresh air, inviting reflection and intimacy. They walked along dirt paths lined with wildflowers, talked about their younger selves, shared memories they hadn't revisited in years, and in those conversations, Elena felt both joy and a gentle ache, realizing how much time had passed, how much they had both grown and changed, sometimes together, sometimes apart, and yet here they were, choosing each other again, choosing to bridge the gaps with honesty and shared experience. As the sun dipped low, painting the sky in warm colors, Michael stopped near a hill overlooking the town, and as they stood there watching the sunset, he took a deep breath, his hand tightening around hers, and Elena sensed that something important was about to be said, something that could deepen their bond or challenge it, and her heart began to race with anticipation. "This place," Michael said quietly, "it makes everything feel clear," and Elena looked at him, searching his face, ready to listen, ready to face whatever truth he needed to share, because she understood now that love wasn't just about comfort and happiness but about courage, about standing together even when the path ahead was uncertain. As the sky darkened and the first stars appeared, Elena felt the weight of the moment settle around them, a sense that this journey, filled with beauty and rediscovery, was leading them toward a turning point, one where hidden feelings and unspoken truths would no longer stay buried, and as she leaned against Michael, feeling his warmth and the steady beat of his heart, she knew that whatever came next would change them forever. Because sometimes the greatest adventures don't just take you to new places but lead you deeper into the heart of the person you love, revealing layers of truth, vulnerability, and connection that can only be discovered when you dare to step beyond the familiar and embrace the unknown together. The final days of their journey arrived like a slow, gentle crescendo, carrying Elena and Michael through streets and landscapes they would never forget, and as they wandered together under skies painted with sunset hues, every step seemed to echo the closeness and trust that had grown between them since the moment Michael had shared his hidden wish, and in those quiet, tender moments, Elena felt the depth of their love more intensely than ever before. A love that had been waiting patiently under the weight of routine and unspoken desires, now awakened with a vivid urgency that made her heart race and her chest ache with joy and longing. And as they strolled through a small square surrounded by soft music from a distant cafe, Michael paused and took Elena's hand, holding it firmly, his gaze steady and filled with emotion, as if he were searching her eyes for permission and affirmation, and she offered him a smile that conveyed both love and understanding, knowing that what he was about to say would mark a turning point in their lives. "Elena," he began, his voice gentle yet trembling with the vulnerability he had carried for years, "I've realized something important on this trip, something I couldn't fully see before, because I was too caught up in responsibility and routine to notice what really matters," and Elena's breath caught, anticipation flooding her chest as she waited for him to continue, feeling the weight of the moment like a fragile glass about to shatter beautifully into clarity and truth. He took a deep breath, eyes glistening with unspoken emotion, and said, "I wanted this journey not just to see the world, but to rediscover us, to remind ourselves why we fell in love, to feel alive together again, to hold each other close and know, without a doubt, that life is fleeting and precious, and that our love deserves to be nurtured, celebrated, and protected." And Elena felt tears prick her eyes, a mixture of relief, happiness, and profound tenderness washing over her, because she realized that his hidden wish, long kept silent, had been about more than adventure. It had been about the intimacy, connection, and courage to live fully together, and in that moment, she understood that every step of their journey, every laugh, every quiet conversation, every shared meal, and every new sight had been building toward this clarity, this renewed sense of purpose and devotion between them. The city around them seemed to fade as they stood together, hand in hand, hearts beating in quiet unison, and Elena felt the warmth of his presence fill her completely, the kind of warmth that reassured her that they could face anything together, that no matter what challenges lay ahead, their love had been strengthened by honesty, vulnerability, and the courage to pursue a dream they had long left unspoken, and she whispered softly, "I understand, Michael. I feel it too. We've found it again, us," and he pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers, letting the moment stretch into an eternity of quiet understanding, a space where words were unnecessary, because their hearts spoke louder than anything else. And in that connection, Elena felt a sense of completion, as if the missing pieces of their life had finally been placed together, forming a picture of love, trust, and shared purpose that would guide them forever. Over the following days, they explored with renewed energy and appreciation, visiting quiet gardens where the scent of flowers mingled with laughter of children, small galleries filled with paintings that spoke to the soul, and ancient streets echoing the footsteps of history. And in every experience, Elena noticed the way Michael's eyes lit up, the way his smiles reached his heart, and how effortlessly he shared joy, wonder, and curiosity with her. And she felt herself changing too, shedding hesitation, embracing spontaneity, and laughing with a freedom she hadn't felt since their younger days, realizing that his wish had been a catalyst for both of them, awakening dormant parts of their hearts that had been waiting for courage, love, and adventure to reignite them. One evening, as they sat by a quiet riverbank, the reflections of city lights shimmering like scattered stars across the water, Michael reached for Elena's hand, entwining their fingers, and said, "I've learned that life isn't about waiting for perfect moments. It's about creating them, holding on to each other, and daring to dream, together." And Elena felt a shiver of joy run through her, knowing that this truth, spoken softly on the edge of night, was the guiding force that would shape the rest of their lives, a promise not just of travel, but of continual discovery, emotional intimacy, and unwavering support. They spent long nights talking about everything and nothing, sharing stories from their past, revealing thoughts they had never spoken aloud, and in those conversations, Elena understood that Michael's hidden wish had also been about emotional honesty, about breaking down barriers of pride, fear, and routine, and embracing the vulnerability that true love requires, and she felt a surge of gratitude that he had trusted her with it, that they had chosen to embark on this journey together, knowing that each step into the unknown was also a step into each other's hearts. As the trip neared its end, they visited a small hill overlooking the city, the wind gentle against their faces, the sky a canvas of fading orange and violet, and Michael turned to Elena, eyes bright with emotion, and whispered, "Thank you for saying yes, for believing in this, for believing in us," and she smiled, tears spilling freely now, feeling the enormity of what they had accomplished together, not just in distance traveled, but in love reclaimed, connection renewed, and hearts opened wider than ever before. They embraced, holding each other tightly, feeling the pulse of life, the thrill of adventure, and the comfort of being home in each other's presence, and Elena realized that Michael's hidden wish had done more than awaken travel dreams, it had awakened their souls, reminding them that love requires courage, vulnerability, and shared experiences, and that happiness isn't a destination but a journey taken hand in hand. On the flight back home, Elena gazed out the window at the patchwork of clouds and landscapes below, thinking about the laughter, the quiet moments, the shared discoveries, and the small miracles of connection that had defined their trip, and she understood that this journey had created memories that would linger forever, that it had strengthened their bond in ways routine life never could, and that Michael's hidden wish, once a quiet longing, had transformed into a promise of continued adventure, renewed intimacy, and a love that would grow deeper with every passing day. Back home, their familiar surroundings welcomed them, but everything felt different, imbued with the magic and clarity they had carried from their travels, the knowledge that they had chosen each other again, that their love was resilient, dynamic, and alive, and that the courage to share a dream, to step into the unknown, and to rediscover themselves together had changed everything, because sometimes the simplest, most secret wishes, spoken with honesty and embraced with love, have the power to transform not just a moment, but a life, and as Elena and Michael unpacked their bags, shared stories with friends, and returned to daily routines, they carried within them the spark of adventure, the thrill of rediscovery, and the quiet, unshakable knowledge that their hearts were forever connected, that their love had been tested, nourished, and renewed, and that the hidden wish that once lived quietly in Michael's heart had become the very foundation of a life lived fully, richly, and together, a life where every ordinary day held the possibility of extraordinary joy, intimacy, and wonder. And as they held hands that evening, looking out at the familiar neighborhood streets now bathed in a gentle twilight, Elena whispered, "We did it, Michael. We found us again," and he smiled, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead, a silent promise that no matter where life led, they would face it together, hearts open, dreams shared, and love alive, and in that quiet, perfect moment, they understood that the journey was never just about places visited or experiences gained, but about choosing each other, daring to dream together, and allowing a hidden wish to illuminate the path to a life more beautiful, intimate, and extraordinary than they had ever imagined.